I give you my permission. Got
Okay.
it.
So just to start off with saying what is BEwell? BEwell stands for Business and Entrepreneurial Well-being. Okay. Business being, I'm an entrepreneur. I have been for 25 years. We celebrated last week 25 years of running my own business. I've understood in the journey that it wasn't enough to focus only on the business, because I had these breakdowns and so on. I also had to get a grip of my mental well-being. And so putting the mental, business and entrepreneurial well-being, you can have good results. So they have to come together. And so this is my contribution and my connection that I do weekly, to give people the chance to actually improve their business performances, but also in life. So I invite guest speakers to come along to talk about business topics, but also to talk about mental well-being. And it's an informal conversation that we have. There's no presentation and lesson and lecturing. It's just a conversation where the guest speaker, today we have Joy Langley, who will give us some insights on what she's doing and where she's coming from. The audience, we're all here together. We can ask questions, we can interact. The session is being recorded. It will be on YouTube, and we can go back to that later on, take some of the nuggets that we get from today's 1 hour together. Okay, so today we have Joy Langley is an emotional intelligence coach and a therapist. She works with CEOs and business owners to strengthen their business. Today's topic is the importance of not being the weakest link in business. Very, very intriguing. So I want to know. So again, repeat the topic. The title is the importance of not being the weakest link in business or in your business. So Joy, would you like to sort of just introduce yourself a little bit, and then we can go into the topic?
Yes, absolutely. And you've introduced me very well, Gary. So you've summed it all up. I'm a therapist by training. I've been doing that for a good 18 years. I've moved more into the space of entrepreneurs and business owners within the last sort of 3-ish years, really, and using the title, the emotional intelligence umbrella, because everyone embraces it, seems to want more of it, but I know that the two overlap. For me, emotional intelligence is really about self-awareness. It starts there. So kind of combining emotional intelligence and my background and my knowledge with therapy.
Let me ask you a question, Joy. Would you like us to have this like an open interaction, sort of people putting their hands up and asking you questions, or would you like us to stop at the end? And how do you want to manage this?
I'm happy for, if people want to ask questions as I'm going along the way, they can raise their hands. I mean, let's make it fun. Let's make it, why not interactive? I mean, that's the best way to be, isn't it? Have a question.
Because I always forget the questions. If I wait till the end, I've forgotten the questions.
Yeah. So, well, you are facilitating it, Gary. So I'm going to depend on you to be in control of what's happening.
Oh God, in control, I don't know. But anyway, I'm here. And so feel free, anyone, any of the participants, Tammy, Terence, and I think Kayla's joining as well now. Just to, if anything comes along that just, you want to get some more information on that, or just put your hand up or whatever.
Yeah, because you can raise your hands, can't you? And that will come up within your box, hopefully. Yeah. Let me just test. Let's just test if this is working. So I've got like oh, that my one's working well. So all my emojis are working. Yeah, you got the real thing.
Just
so
saying to everyone that if you've got a question or you want something, just raise your hand and Joy will answer the question.
Yeah.
Do that.
So where would you like to start, Gary? Because I'm relying on you to guide the ship. I'm a passenger on board your ship today. Sometimes I'm in charge when I'm doing my own rooms, but this is all about you sort of guiding me today.
Okay, so as I said, we're here to connect, the first thing, and then we're here to also contribute to each other's journey along business or in life. Okay, and so as the topic is the importance of not being the weakest link, perhaps we could look at the word the weakest link. What do you mean by that? What does that mean for you or for us? the weakest link in business or in life? What are we talking about here?
Yeah, I think the two of them overlap, be quite honest, but there is a pressure on anyone to be the strongest. But when you're in your business and you're running a business, you do have to, if you're by yourself, which I'm a solo entrepreneur, you can't afford to be unwell. You can't afford to be sick. That's physically sick. But we forget about the emotional impact and the mental impact of everything on us. So I think for me, the weakest link, when I suggested that title to you, Gary, it was more to do with perhaps giving us an opportunity to think about what we mean by the word weak and what we mean by the word strong. And if we're looking at mental and emotional health, again, you have your own feeling of what your own good health looks like when you're mentally strong and emotionally strong, and what it looks like when you're not. And acknowledging that there is no one place that you're in. If we look at it as a wave, I like to think about a lot of things as a wave, a bit of an up and down movement in things. Sometimes I'm feeling great. I admit it. I'm like, wow, I'm on top of the world. Sometimes I'm in that well or in the valley and I think, ooh, why am I here? So for me, not being the weakest link is kind of acknowledging when you yourself are not in a good place and you have to do something about it. So that was my thinking around the title, Gary.
Okay, because I get the idea of a weakest link, me being in a chain and me actually being accountable to other people. Is that what we're talking about? Or are we accountable to ourselves?
Well, I think if you're working with other people, you're definitely part of a chain where you're accountable to other people. If you're a solopreneur, a lot of the pressure falls on you, but then you have people that you have to go out and talk to. Like today, I have to talk to you, Gary, and all these lovely people who joined me. So I know the responsibility is on me to make sure that I'm in a good space for the time that we're coming on today, that I've perhaps prepared, or if there's anything mentally going on in my life, I have to try and put that behind me so I can have this conversation with you. And if it were the case that I wasn't able to do that, then it would be giving you enough notice to reschedule things. I think I wanted people to perhaps just question the word weak, because it's something that is thrown at us as we grow up, and we all think we have to be strong. And I think I have to be strong. And especially for me, I didn't like the idea of ever showing people any signs that there was anything going on for me. So I would put on a brave face. If I felt like crying, I wasn't able to cry. So there was lots of things that I did, which I thought I have to be strong. And it's just ideas that we're given about how we should be, ought to be, must be as we go through life. And I wanted everyone, I suppose, to question the word weak and strong and perhaps just see what comes up for you, you know.
Yeah.
That was my first, like, I suppose if I want to call it an exercise in self-awareness. It's what do I understand about the word weak? What does it mean to me? The word strong, what does that mean to me? Am I able to be in either of those places and feel comfortable? So I like to think about a lot of ideas as being if we imagine a straight line, or call it a continuum or a piano, you've got one end where you might have weak, you might have one end where you're strong. And again, it's all circumstantial because it will change. But you're going to be traveling up and down that line, from feeling weak or feeling not confident, depending on what you're doing, to feeling strong. So is that a mix of mental and emotional activities that I'm talking about? I'm not leaning so much on the physical, but I'm looking at mental and emotional. And I just think we travel up and down that line throughout the day. I certainly do. I don't know if you too, Gary. Sometimes I can be in a really good place, like, yeah, I'm a 10 out of 10, like, whoosh, I'm up here. Sometimes I'm getting down to, for me, going under 5, which is midway point. I know there's something going on in my life, and I have to acknowledge that as a feeling and a sensation and work out what is it so I can change it.
I got a question here, just thinking, are there times when we play the weak to give others the opportunities to play the strong?
Well, I personally do not know, because I have a thought. So we're always going back to how we see ourselves and our beliefs about ourselves. So you can call it a thought, but I have an image of myself, and I'm always strong. I'm like this warrior, I'm just like, there's a program that I liked on TV years back called Xena, the Warrior Princess. Probably no one's seen it. People might understand Wonder Woman, okay, but this person who is just amazingly strong. So for me, it's never about playing. I never want to ever play the weak card. I can understand that people could do that, and some people have learned it as a way of being. It's a form of helplessness. So it's something that you learn, a behavior, because it gets you what you want in life. It might get you attention, but we're always working out, really. And I did a webinar about 2 weeks ago now, coming up to 2 weeks, but how to get people to do what you want. And I think we learn techniques as life, and sometimes we play a certain card. Depends on how, if it gets us what we want. I personally, Gary, me, with my belief, I am strong all of the time. Of course, I'm not. Have moments when I'm not. No, I would never deliberately play the weak card. It's not my thing.
Let's ask the participants. If anyone,
Vote of hands.
Tammy, it's the first time I've seen you here.
We can just do a hand vote, can't we? We can just do like vote of hands. Yeah, why not? So I know that
we're just trying to provoke Joy a little bit to try and get some more stuff from her. That was the reason why I said about playing the weak card.
Yeah.
Because obviously, as an entrepreneur or as a leader or as a guide, you're always in that you're in that role as strong as the leader and so on. But there are moments where you have to step back and give others the opportunity. So my question was that. What about you, Tammy, in your journey of business, life? How do you see
Well, I know in negotiating a contract, you do not want to be the weakest link. So, I mean, there's certain areas where most areas being strong in business is extremely important. But I also understand how it is to let other people be strong. And it's okay sometimes to step back and let people, not for me to not micromanage other people, allows them to be strong. So stepping back and letting somebody else do it, even though I think I might be able to do it better, is a good thing for people who are still learning. So in that respect, I'm not really being weak by stepping back, but I'm saying I trust this person who needs to learn this skill. And so I let them take charge.
And that, again, is, for me, that's showing a lot of emotional intelligence, in that I can allow somebody else to come forward and share their views. And perhaps in order for me to help someone to, we call it, this word, psychological safety is the buzzword at the moment. But in order for someone to feel that they can share their points of views, and they are one, have to perhaps step back and just and encourage them. And it's not a sign, you're absolutely right, Tammy, it's not a sign of you being weak. It's probably a sign of you being quite smart, actually, and quite intelligent, and saying, well, Joy, I'm going to let you share your view, but I have to step back and not appear to be dominating things. So yeah, I agree with you, Tammy.
Soham, any thoughts on this, the weakest link? And
yes, I have, like what Joy was saying. Yes, I have a tendency of showing that not showing weakness, but I think there are times that is actually negative. It can be negative on my mental well-being, because if I feel vulnerable, then I should show vulnerability. And I think depending on what outset you are doing in a workplace, nobody wants to show their weakness at workplace, because people are not on the same path as most of us are on at the moment. Because in the workplace, people are on a different path. So if you show weakness, you will get instantly judged, and on that judgment, they will actually form a personality of you, that maybe not you, because you could show a weakness for only one certain thing, but they will make out a person of you which you're not really truly that. So I think showing a weakness in the right format, I don't know if there is a right format, but I wouldn't, like in this format, if I wanted to show my vulnerability, I would show my vulnerability, because I know, most of the people who are here are coaches, and instead of you sitting there judging me for showing my vulnerability, you might actually, show empathy, compassion, and actually support me to come out of what I may be going. Do you see? This is, I'm just thinking as Joy and Temi were talking, this is the thought which has come up. Some of you know that I'm actually I'm come from a HR background, and I'm still working within HR, but I'm also a trained coach. But I feel if working in a HR profession, it wouldn't work in my favor to show a vulnerability in that professional environment, because I would be instantly judged, and I would be judged based on what I have said, as well as, am I capable of doing the job that I'm doing for showing up that vulnerability? But I think it's wrong, because I think we in a profession, so I do go into work and I say to people, it's okay to show vulnerability, because that's where we can help each other, basically, and the mental well-being that is so big out in the world at the moment. If people couldn't show their vulnerability, they are not being real to themselves as well as the people around them.
And I agree with you, Sam. And I want to also say that, you mentioned about perhaps being in this format that Gary has so kindly set up. What's encouraging you to be okay with showing another side to you, whereas in another setting you might not be okay? And the word psychological safety is a word that a lot of people are using. And I did an interview with a gentleman last week called Chad Littlefield. I think that was his name. Got to remember it. Chad's going to shout at me for forgetting. But that's the whole basis of what he does, is setting up, making sure that teams and companies do create that kind of psychological safety where people can share things. So the title of today's talk, and we're all here in the same room, was really a little bit of being provocative, as Gary said, and he knows that I'm a little bit like that, but it's to get you to think about stuff, and everything is by definition. So there are 8 people in the room right now, so we'd all have to, by definition, agree what we mean by weak. And I accept that sometimes there are some words which I like and some words which I don't like. And I suppose weak has too much of a memory for me. So I change the words and I use the words that I like. And I will say that it's an energy thing. If I put it down to energy, sometimes I have low energy and sometimes I have high energy. And I need to know when I'm in that space, because it alters my mood. So the vulnerability that you mentioned, Soham, was very interesting. Can we step forward and be vulnerable? It depends on who the person is and the setting. If I'm feeling safe, like I'm beginning to get more comfortable with seeing you guys in front of me, and I don't feel my stress response is like, even though at the beginning it's like, what's going to happen? I don't know what's going to happen. That is natural for the body to go into that space. It's all disappearing. I can feel it. I can feel myself relaxing, which is, this is safe. And I like to say that the body is very good at asking us that question, possibly 4 times every second. It's just asking us the question, are we safe? Are we safe? Are we safe? Are we safe? It's just trying to calibrate what's going on around it so that it can survive. And once I'm okay, and I've told myself that I'm safe, I relax. And yeah, being vulnerable is interesting because it helps me. When I start feeling safe, I share things about me, about my background, because I don't think I'm going to be judged. I don't think anyone's going to possibly hold it against me, and I'm making a choice as well. I'm making a choice about how much I share. And as
so we're talking about the weakest link. I was just saying, so we're saying that when the weakest link is when you're low in energy.
that's what I would want to say.
Maybe
Harry.
that could be. So what can we do when we find that we feel that we're low on energy and we could be the weakest link in a work team or in a work environment? What can we do?
I think you have to work out, why am I feeling this way? For me, I do ask myself that question a lot. Okay, so if we're looking at self-awareness, it's understanding how you operate at your best, perhaps how you're feeling, how you're thinking, perhaps what's going on around you. Just know you've got like a set of data which you just have in your mind, and you know when things are going wrong because you get different sensations, or you for me personally, I can't think straight when I'm like that. I lack in energy, and the world just generally feels like a crappy place. It doesn't feel like a good place for me. And because I have some evidence that that's not my world, there have been moments when my world has been great, fabulous, great people. You guys are here, wonderful people. I'm going, yeah, I'm happy. My mind knows, I know personally that it's not a forever place. So looking at, I think, stress in your life and the way that it affects your energy, the way that it affects your attitude and your ability to be in the world, I think you just have to know where you're at. If you wanted to equate it to, I don't know, 0 to 10, like a bar chart, 0 down here, not much energy, 10 loads, you have to know what is acceptable for you. So I know if I get to like 5 in my head, 6 and 5, they're numbers where I'm thinking, okay, I can still function, I'm fine. I can still be around people and talk and do my thing. If it feels as though it's gone to 4 on my own assessment, then I really know I have to pull back and give myself some quiet space. For me,
What do you do if you're an entrepreneur or, in that case? When
you have, but you have to find a way of breaking out of that cycle, because my brain doesn't function. I know it doesn't function. So I personally call it a slope, and I just don't allow myself to slide beyond this screen. I will stop myself halfway down the hill. I really will. And I owe it to myself to recognize that, so that I don't hit what I call the load, because you can't dig yourself out of a ditch very easily. And if you know you're on the way, then you can actually pull yourself out of it. But business owners they're not a special group, in terms of like, they run a business. They choose to do something quite difficult in this world because they're managing so many moving parts. Normally within a company, it'd be, sort of like delegated to other people. But as a business owner, so many hats, things go wrong all the time. I call it riding a wave, a bit like a surfer. You have to understand yourself to know that if you've reached whatever you deem to be your critical, non-negotiable point that you will not go beyond, that's the point when you do something. And I will pull back from some of the things that I'm doing. I will try and rest more. I will try and put more enjoyment back into my life, because I do believe it's like 2 cups. One that's your stress cup or your stress jar, one that's your joy jar. That's me. You have to work out how you're filling these things up. And if too many stresses are going in this one and not enough stuff going in the happy jar, there's a problem. So it's not that you can't be stressed, and it's not that you can't have things going on in your life. It's how you balance it out with some good stuff.
True.
If that makes sense, Gary.
Yeah, of course it does. I'm in a sort of practical look at it, because I run the business and I'm here every day, and sometimes I can't go down to the weakest. I can't be the weakest link because people are looking at me, and I might have bad days, and I can't pull back because we've got meetings or people are coming here or whatever's happening, and and you have to just put on a brave face and just go through it. And maybe in that moment, I might feel I'm the weakest link because everyone's running, everyone's looking at me, but I'm just low on energy. I just don't have it. So I see where you're coming from, Joy. I see where you're coming from, but I think sometimes when you're in the heat of the battle, it's a bit difficult to pull back. So
if that were the case for me, then you would just notice that Joy was very quiet. She's not contributing very much, and I would be present but not present. And I get a sense that the people that know me very well know when I'm present, and they know when I'm sort of like gone back and I'm part of the wallpaper, or part of the just the background. But what do you do then, Gary, to turn it around? Because if you have to be somewhere and you know that you're in that low energy space, how do you ride out, as you said, you called it in the heat of the battle? So we got all these terminology.
I think
being in a battle, or being on a raging sea, whatever you want to have as your metaphor. But
I think in the past I've got myself under control now because I've worked a lot on myself. But in the past, my answer to that was intolerance, anger, frustration. It was the others were just not up to what I wanted, and so it was all on me. And so it became me against them, against the world, against everything. And so that was my answer. It wasn't I would pull back. I couldn't pull back because I felt this obligation towards the business, towards other people, towards I don't know, maybe my ambition of being an entrepreneur and so on. And so it was going against the grain rather than pulling back. And that sort of broke me down as well, because then I had a breakdown of that.
I was going to say, Gary, this whole thing about, for me, being well, you have a responsibility to know how to keep yourself well, which for me tends to be about getting some knowledge around stress, understanding what this fight and flight thing is, understanding what adrenaline is, just understanding. For me, knowledge gives me the ability to manage my energy, or manage my ability to be the strongest link or the weakest link. And like I said, I do have mentally at my own point at which I will not go below, simply because, like you, had a breakdown and such. But I certainly got to the point where I've been depressed, I've been anxious in my late 20s. Late 20s was the main place, because I had a lot of things that I was thinking about. I had a lot of things I wanted to do. And it was the disappointment of not having that, also being in the wrong places, job-wise at the time, that created my unhappiness. So I knew it was my responsibility to keep myself happy. And it's, how do you do that? So I would never, having been through having that kind of like a place of no return, where it takes you to dark places. People don't like to talk about suicide. They don't like to talk about the fact that people have negative thoughts and dark thoughts, but they happen. They happen to me very easily and very quickly. So I know I don't ever want to go to that place again. So for me, I do have literally an energetic thing inside of me where it goes, Joy, you're halfway, your battery is half empty. And I'm like, wow, half empty. Interesting. And I have to look around me to see what's creating it, because you have to find a solution. I think that a lot of the signals that we're being given are asking us to question our environment and what's around us. Sometimes we can find solutions, sometimes we can't. So, Gary, I would never let myself get to that point. I'd like to believe I would never get to that point. And I've had some really deep stuff, heavy stuff happen to me in my life around grief and people passing on. And I lost my son in 2018. So, people might say, how comes you're still standing, Joy? And I'm like, interesting question. But I think that all the techniques and the ideas that I have kept me safe. Without some of those ways of being to fall back on, then I think things could have been very different for me. So I do have a non-negotiable energy level that I kind of refused to go beneath. But grief is a special place. You do have to allow yourself to go through your grieving journey. But again, I mentioned about what you think and what you say. You have to be very conscious about what you make things mean. So if people are into cognitive behavioral therapy, or just this idea about you are what you think, and what happens in the world, it's down to the meaning that you give it. I give a lot of things which could be perceived as really bad. I try to give them a reasonably good spin, or at least an acceptable spin. So you'll never find me at a 0. You'll never find me at under a 4, hopefully. 4 out of 10.
Yeah,
That's
I
my
agree.
place.
I agree with you, Joy. Knowledge and then awareness. I think that's all plays a part. So let's ask some questions to other people here. Is that true? Have you got a question or a reflection on what we're talking about? Weak, strong,
Energy.
going below a certain level, being able to pull back. Those kind of topics.
Like being in the cockpit
No,
of an airplane, you pull back.
I don't think about weakness, really. It's maybe because of the work I do. No weakness. Sometimes you're this, sometimes you're that. But, it comes in companies, like you said. You're only as strong as your weakest link. So then what you do as a good team leader, you support the weakest link, so you lift everybody up. But no, I don't think of weak. If people are weak, if they don't have courage, there is a reason for that. And then we as people around should maybe, support that, as opposed to beating down on it.
And that's a good answer, I think, Trude. But what happens when you're feeling, as I said, I like to say it's low energy rather than I'm feeling weak today, because I think words are very powerful and you can become words. So energy is something I can go with. But if it's good when you're able to be strong enough or energetic enough to support others, what happens when it's happening to you?
When I'm weak, when I feel weak or let's say insecure, I in a way isolate, to hide, not to let people know. I would say that's the way I'm going.
Yes, and that's the pulling back. And yeah, I tend to I call it shutting down sometimes. I do shut down, but the pulling back and having your own space, perhaps it's a case of just acknowledging that that's fine, as opposed to feeling that you need or you must or you ought to carry on. And I think that going that place where we recede, I think that's a place where we're recharging. I'm
interested in what Kayla has to say.
Kayla, go.
Hi, Truda. It's been a long time since I've seen you. I resonate a lot with the language that you use, Joy. Like, I think of everything as energy also, and this idea of keeping my energy charged up. I like the metaphor of like, you wouldn't go out with your cell phone was on 0 and meet your friends. So like, why would you go out with your friends when your energy is at 0? So yeah, like you, I like to check in and see where am I at. And if I'm below 40%, then I'm probably not fit for other people. It's like when you haven't showered and you haven't brushed your teeth and you don't feel well, right? And you're like, okay, I'm just going to stay home because I'm not taking care of myself, but on an energetic level. So yeah, I like how you put that. Yeah.
Sharon, you got some thoughts on this, Sharon?
It's a step up from where I am, and mine was actually given to me. I mean, my grandmother used to say, if you feeling down and you can't get out of your rut, go find somebody else and see if you can give them a hand out of theirs. And that was it. So there was never checking your energy. It was like you had to find somebody with half an energy too, so you could actually both do something. And that was almost the thing that you checked, was if you were feeling, the idea, it was like a signal. If you felt that bad, you had to go find somebody that felt that bad, because the two of you together only had the battery power to pull one of you out, and then you could work on the other one. But yeah, it was
And,
like,
and in a way, I think, Sharon, is it your grandma, you said?
Mhm.
Yes, your grandma she was half sort of right with that idea about if we're getting ourselves more and more and more and more into ourselves, the thing to break that can be to look outside of yourself and to focus on something else, because it's the self focus that we're talking about that gets you into a bit of a depression. It's all about me, basically. So I have to say, okay, let me think about Gary. You know, what's Gary up to? What, you know, can I perhaps spend some time with Gary? I wonder how. It's not so much about, I think, finding someone who is in an equally bad place, because that sounds like a really recipe for disaster in my books, Sharon. I can see a real car crash about
I think it has been a couple times.
yeah, I can see a car crash about to happen there. Okay, but what I'm pulling out of that statement and your grandma, I think every bit of wisdom that's passed down the ages has got a kernel of truth in it. It started from somewhere. And I think it's about breaking the self-focus. So if it's a cycle of me thinking about myself and how I feel, and then feeling sorry for myself, and then me thinking again more about me, and then I feel even worse. It's about, I think, breaking a cycle. And you break it by doing something else. So you can break it by doing something else. You can break it by trying to feel something else, which is a bit harder, or you can break it by thinking something else. And that's why all the limiting beliefs are spoken about, and what are we thinking? And really, it's just recognizing the connection between those three moving parts. So she had a point about breaking it by doing something, finding someone that you can assist, but finding someone who's equally in a really bad place. That sounds like it's going to be a bit dangerous in my book, Sharon.
But I was so young when she told me this. I think I was probably under 10, but her idea was that's a button that says, if you're feeling that bad, that's a button that said that you're going to push, because you got to stop about you and go help somebody else out, because you don't have, and it wasn't necessarily a good thing to say to a person, because I did actually get in a couple of incidents where we both went down together because we were low. So to see you say the low energy stuff and put it that way, it's so much more sensible, because you do have to watch out that, you don't just pull each other down.
Yes. And I don't know, are you American, Sharon? You're
nope,
Scottish?
Canadian.
Canadian, okay. Pretty close. So you'll understand the statement, because I have a lot of colleagues who I speak to in America and Canada, and the saying that they like to use, not a very British one, but you can't pour from an empty cup. If I'm a bit low, then how could I possibly support somebody else that needed energy? But there's another idea just around, if we're looking at perhaps stress management and us getting into that sort of, I suppose, nervous, anxious place. We've got to work out what's happening, because the body is giving us a signal. There may well be a wild lion outside my house, there may well be an elephant outside I don't know, but there may well be something out there that could be dangerous for me. So the signal comes, and you have to work out these three, let's have three cups now instead of like the two I just mentioned before. Is this energy in my body something that I need to face a challenge? Because it could be that I need to really face that wild animal outside my house. If the answer is no, then you have to look at, okay, is this a place where I am just challenged? There's something challenging which I need to do. So a threat, middle cup, challenge. Threat's been eliminated. There's no lions or elephants where I live. I know that for a fact. Is it a challenge? Middle cup, just a challenge I need to face. Okay, like today, I've got to come on and do this talk for Gary. That is indeed a challenge. I assess on my own level, my own scale of what I call challenging, because we're always looking at life from our reference point. We don't have anything else to look at. So in my experience, is this a 10, a really big challenge? Is it small? Because I've been doing these rooms and been doing audio rooms for over a year and a bit now, I feel quite comfortable, even though I feel a little bit nervous, which is okay. So it's a challenge. And then the third cup, which ties in a bit with what Sharon said, is that, okay, so I've got this energy in my body. Perhaps I need to extend that to somebody else to help take the focus off me. And because when you connect with other people, they also feed this is a very happy cycle of the hormone oxytocin going on. It's a bonding hormone. So bonding with other people is probably, again, Sharon, your grandma may have had a point. You see, we don't know why we get past these things down, but perhaps someone saw that if you help someone and you're feeling a bit down, you feel a bit better. So it becomes a bit of an anecdote that gets passed down. But these three places, am I threatened? Is it a challenge? Or is it something where I can just reach out and seek help or bond with someone? They can help me. You know, there's three ways that you could actually just expend, let's say.
Well, she
energy.
explained it as it may be not my turn, but if I wanted my turn to come around, I had to help the other people in line. So, you know, go find somebody, help them get their turn over so it can be your turn for things to work out right for you.
Yeah.
And it's such a weird thing, but it was made so much sense when you were a kid. And it gave
Of course it does.
And
it's also encouraging, it's socializing children, human beings, to help each other.
Mm-hmm.
She's saying the reason why you go out and you help people is because when you need the help, someone will be there for you. So we're creating it's a very nice picture in a child to create the fact that be helpful.
But it is you got to help yourself first, right?
Yeah.
You got before you can help others.
Oh yeah, and I did get in trouble a couple of times, thinking, okay, I'm down, and this friend of mine's down, and I am going to help her get out. Well, she was in more of a down than I was. We ended up in, commiserating with each other, and we were
toxic
for like 2 weeks, and it's like, what, we shouldn't be doing this. We've both got to get out of here. And we ended up actually fighting and not talking to each other for a few weeks.
So it's recognizing that there are some rules that society can put around you, but some of them are not founded on any kind of scientific principles. That's when they can kind of go a little bit wrong. But there's a kernel of truth in everything. Yeah.
Someone else got some questions here. So something that you've heard? We're talking about the weakest link in a chain or in a team, in a company, in business. A question around that, like, how can we make sure that each link doesn't become the weak link? If that makes sense. So is that question clear?
Question is clear. I mean, what everybody's saying, actually, I'm taking on board. But as what Joy was saying earlier, that, when you are feeling weak, Joy shared her experience that she steps back and checks her own energy. And we are all energetic beings at the end of the day, much as some of us may be in touch with that energy of ours and some of us may not be. But end of the day, if we recognize somebody is a weakest link, being in my profession, I would approach them and actually ask them if I can be the sounding board for them. Because not every time when people are going through anything within themselves, they don't want to talk about it. They want to process it themselves. So like has what Joy said, what Truth said as well earlier, that, you go within yourself and you find, a solution. Sometimes you may not be finding the solution, but, sometimes you may need to talk to somebody to find a solution. So that then, if we are feeling that weakest link, and, in a business, Gary, as you said earlier as well, like you could find that, somebody is weakest link. Is it because are they weakest link because they are not able to do that role, or they're not able to do the project that they've been given? But do they have the right, skill sets, or do they have the right attitude to actually do that? Or if they don't have it, then they naturally will become a weakest link. And I think this actually fits to all of us. Do we have the right skill set? Do we have the right mindset to do something? when we don't have it, then we can naturally become a weakness link.
And that is because you become
It's actually
you're
putting your
less
hand up and say,
confident.
hang on.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know,
That's
I
the link
can't.
for me with confidence there.
Yeah.
So, and because, you know, this thing about confidence and competence, they're so closely linked together. And you mentioned about someone having the right skills. If I don't have the right skills for something, I am the least confident person in the whole room, you know, for that moment, which naturally makes sense.
Yes.
Until I'm taught or I learn something or I practice it enough, and then the confidence goes. But for me, that being the weakest link is perhaps recognizing in yourself when you're not at your best. That would be fair to say. And Gary, you said having to go out there and be around other people and still stick to your schedule. It would be nice if you were around people who would acknowledge that you've turned up, but that also might acknowledge that you're, you know, you're not running at full strength. You might even decide to admit it. You know, again, that's like joy. You're going to be vulnerable and say, hi guys, I'm here today. I'm not at my best today, but I will be still, you know, tuning in. It depends, which, as we were saying, about who we're going to be around. But I personally, at this point in my life, I only surround myself with good people. So if I'm not feeling great, either I don't turn up because I really can't face them, or I acknowledge that I'm not in a good place and say, guys, I'm not at my best, but I do want to be here.
We mentioned a couple of things. There was isolation, because Trude said that when she's feeling low, she isolates, so she pulls back. I said that when in my journey, as I said, I've worked on myself a little bit in the last few years, but my weakness, or when I felt weak or low in energy, it actually transformed into anger, into confrontation with others and so on. So it made me worse, because I felt I was the weak link for low energy or competence or confidence or whatever. So I asked the other participants here, how did this show up for you in a situation where you felt you were maybe not competent or confident, or you felt weak in a situation? How did it show up? For me, it showed up as anger. Trude said she isolated. What about someone else? I mean, Tammy, do you have a situation where you were like this, out of
I guess my background is nursing, and so I think in just practical terms, physical terms, you know, I like to monitor things in a physical way. Check my blood pressure. Make sure that I'm taking care of myself. My nutrition is proper. I'm moving my body. For me, energy is a physical thing, and if I get out and move my body and put on some great music and surround myself with other people who have this energy. I have a great friend who lives close by. In fact, I'm going to walk with her as soon as this is over. And we have a habit of walking together in the morning, and other people can really support me if I'm in that low energy place, because, and it's like it helps us both. Sharon was mentioning how, you know, she found a friend who was equally they were both low together. I've been there too. I've been there with people, and it's a disaster for me. But when I can find people that have that positive energy that are supporting, and it's like we help each other, and then we're in a positive loop instead of negative. And I guess that's my method of, you know, I find physical ways to raise my energy, and breathing is helpful. Just learning how to control my breath. And you know, I think some people inherit very high cortisol levels, maybe because they were raised in a high stress environment, and it runs in my family. So for me, learning how to bring that down, my stress hormone, through practical measures has been extremely helpful.
Brilliant. So we've got isolate, pull back, anger. We've got control your breath, control your breath. Something else that people do, I don't know, when you feel that you're in a situation where you're not completely at your best.
Can I just add, Gary, to what Tammy said about the movement and the energy and this high cortisol level that we can, some people are born into a high, you know, a stressful environment, and that's their natural set point. So sometimes about getting rid of cortisol, it can be just through exercise. I had a client a couple of years back, and to all intents and purposes, what she was saying to me about where she was at with her life and her finances and stuff, it was a mess. And I said, you shouldn't be standing. I said to her, how comes you're standing and you're having this conversation with me, you know? And she said, go to the gym. She said, I go to the gym. And I thought, yeah, you can burn off that excess cortisol. So very interesting, Tammy. Thank you. But also filling the cup up with positive things.
Yeah, that's something
that.
We ran into that. We were talking about basic communication that can communicate joy, and what if you were a caveman, if you were the richest person in the world, if you were the poorest person in the world, what would you communicate joy through? And it would be movement or dance, or, you know, yeah, everybody dances. And so can we have a worldwide dance and get ourselves back into, you know, into order, and the language of both music and dance seem to be universally accepted, almost like what we call, you know, the universal smile. So are these languages or tools that we can fall back on? I mean, I know there's nothing more secure than dancing in the kitchen, you know, with your husband in the middle of the night when the kids have blown the house up and you're not got enough money for the budget and all that sort of thing. And he says, oh yeah, let's just dance. And we dance in the kitchen. It's like, it's the best feeling in the whole friggin' world. You know, everybody had it. So
you found your antidote. That's great. I love it.
Yeah.
Taylor, how do you deal with being the weakest or low energy in a situation?
Yeah, I think I go back to just
and
the retreating.
maybe where you have to be the highest energy, but you feel the lowest energy.
I don't usually put myself in situations where I have to be at the highest energy, to be honest. I give myself lots of leeway. That's one of the perks of being an entrepreneur, right? We have a lot of control. And I, like Joy was saying, I can either cancel if it really feels like I'm not able to meet somebody and to be at a high enough energy to do my work. Or if it's like a group thing, I'm very comfortable just being honest and saying, look, this is where I'm at today. I'm here to hold the space, but you all do your thing while we're here. And usually that works great for me. Otherwise, yeah, if I'm expected to go out and be in person at things, I used to force myself to go and be there, and it caused a lot of physical like problems. I'll have migraine the next day, or, you know, just feel like get the flu or something happens. So now I just say, sorry, it didn't, like the stars aren't aligned. I'm not going to be there because I don't feel my best, and I'm not going to stretch my energy so thin that I will get sick. So
yeah, Kayla's such a chill person.
You're
a chill person, Kayla.
I've worked really hard to get there.
Liking your style. I'm liking your style.
It's that thing about, like, you know, fake it till you make it. And then you've probably all heard that expression. And sometimes you're in a situation where you want to say to everyone, but I think you've got to actually have done work on yourself to be able to say that. Otherwise, you feel you're in a role, in an identity where you have to maintain that, especially in business. And it's a bit difficult to pull back or just say, I'm not feeling 100% today, and can you run the meeting, whatever. And you know, I think it does take a lot of work. When you get to that sort of that place, as Kayla was saying, then you can say it, and you don't feel like you're weak. You just feel like you've opened up, let's say.
I suppose, Gary, I've just learned over the years, I'm no longer a 20-something or a 30-something or even a 40-something. I'm a little bit further down the line. So I've probably just learned more about what makes me work well and how I tick. And self-care before it was a word, I suppose, I just understood that if I want to be on this earth and survive, I'm going to have to live my life a different way. And that was it. And just like Kayla said, there's not much point in putting myself in situations which are going to make me more stressed, or going to make me more anxious, or I'm going to have to build up to it in such a way that I feel sick, nauseous, like you could throw up. That's like my whole body saying, Joy, this probably isn't very smart. If my body, I always imagine if my body were trying to say something to me, how would it do it? How would it get the message across to me? It's not physically talking to me in words, but it's talking to me in feelings. But you do have to, within all of this, work out whether it's true or false. So for me, it is about, is this true? Is this false? Because of course, we can talk ourselves out of lots of situations that are difficult at first. A lot of mention is made about the comfort zone, but it's that place that you're used to. And then when you stretch yourself a little bit more, it feels a little bit anxiety provoking. So you have to work out, is this a situation where I'm growing, or is this a situation that is dangerous for me? So you're working out risk a lot of the time. But Gary, I hear that you had to put yourself, or possibly you were put in situations, or you put yourself in, I've got to take responsibility. You put yourself in situations, Gary, where things were tough and you had to make a call on how you were going to manage it in front of people, whether there were people that were supportive enough there for you to take a back seat, or whether you had to, as you said, fake it to make it to get through that particular situation. I've done that too. And afterwards, like Kayla said, I'm totally exhausted. Totally exhausted.
And when I look back on some of the things that in the last 25 years I've been running this business, 25 years, and just listen to you as well about the nausea and coming to work where the mind says, don't worry, we've got this, mind over matter. And then the body saying, no, we haven't got this. So I've come to work, dressed for work, taken the kids to school, I've come in the office, and then the body's just broken down. I've had to get back in the car, go home, actually vomit sometimes in the bathroom, or spend the whole day in bed behind blacked up room, curtains, in bed all day, because the body just said, no, we are not going to do this. And so that's what, in the end, the body took over. My mind wouldn't have it. It just said, listen, we can do this. And so there's another, this mind over matter. I'm really going through this phase now, trying to understand that the body will shut down when it knows it can't. It will just shut down.
Well, I think that's learning about us as human beings, and that we divorce ourselves from. We forget. It's a funny thing. We always forget our head sits on top of this thing, which there's more of this thing that is sitting on than us, isn't there? But we forget the two talk to each other. When did we stop thinking that our head speaks to our body and our body speaks to our head? It speaks in different ways. You're right. It'll make you sick. It'll take you out, Gary. And we're looking at, again, thoughts. What thoughts do we have around this word weak and strong? What thoughts do we have around this word I have to be there, I must be there, I should be there? What's driving us? So it's like motivation. What motivates us? And for me, pushing myself to the point where I've stopped listening to what my body's trying to say to me, that is a recipe for disaster, because that's where illness happens. And a lot is spoken about stress and burnout. Burnout really is someone who's pushed themselves beyond the point of, you can return, hopefully, but you've pushed yourself beyond the point that you can function in that moment. And it's got a bit of a bite, because it takes a bit of recovery from exhaustion. And I have to admit that I know I've been in exhaustion myself recently, and I recognized it. I said, Joy, this isn't healthy. You cannot start work at 10 o'clock, an early start for me, 10 o'clock, but also work up until 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. I'm like, Joy, this is not healthy. But sometimes you have to. But I recognize when my body's fighting back, and I say, right, you need to change, Joy. You need to change. So I've been like just
It's been a
pedaling.
it's been a great talk. We're coming to the end, and I don't want people just jumping off. And so I want to say goodbye to everyone before they all jump off. Thank you, Joy, for your insights, and it was a great conversation. And we could continue for another hour, I'm sure. But the BEwell is just 1 hour. It's recorded. It's going to be put on the YouTube. So if you want to look at it, next week we're going to have another coach coming on called Anna. If I say her name properly, Heuler from Switzerland. And she's going to be talking about, just give me 1 second, just get her thing, balancing the masculine and feminine in business.
Nice one.
Balancing the masculine and feminine in business. So I don't know where we're going to go with that, but these are the topics that come along on this space that I hold. So if you want to come along, please do. If you want to bring someone else or you want to share the post, whatever, great, because it's a space where we just interact and we share these things where maybe we can't share with people outside. So here is our tribe, let's say.
And it's interesting you putting it on YouTube. Is that a kind of contained community, or is that, because it's interesting, is it to the world? Because once you're on social media, you're on social media.
Well, I put it out there and it's not edited. It's just the way it is. And we're making mistakes, we're stumbling over words or whatever. It just goes out there, and I put it out there and I leave it. So some people see it, some people don't. And because it's a shame that we spend 1 hour together, and it could be helpful for someone else. So put it out there. It doesn't really matter.
Quite true. And please feel free to connect with me, everyone, on LinkedIn. I'll try and get the names as well. And
Joy Langley, the name.
How am I going to get the names? Anyway, I'll probably have to take a print screen. Names might be there if I do it properly. Who knows?
Okay, anyway.
Next week's, I have an absolute completely different idea about this balancing out thing.
Come along and speak to this.
Okay, I just don't want to. I kind of had that conversation. I have 7 daughters, and their reach is real, and yeah. So I just don't want to ruin things for next week.
No, Sharon, absolutely. Come along. It's a safe place, and this person is going to, because she specializes in balancing the masculine and feminine business. That's what she talks about. That's her expertise. So let's listen to what she has to say. I'm interested. I'm sort of curious, and we'll see. We'll see what she says.
And I want to say thank you very much, Gary, for inviting me, and thank you everyone for staying. Kayla, Trude, Sharon, and there were 2 other people. Really appreciate you just joining the room. Gary, thank you so much as well.
Thank you, Joy. Thanks, everyone. Look after yourselves. See you soon. Bye-bye.
See you. Bye-bye. So Gary, I'll catch up with